Hey, Alter Legal Warriors, what are the best practices if you're going to do any court hearing by Zoom? It's been several years since courts started using Zoom back in 2020 for the most part when COVID was just started out, but yet Zoom is here to stay, or things like Zoom. There's Microsoft Teams, you name it. But there are some best practices that I want you to know about because we want you to appear your best in court. We want you to have lower stress, better results. And so if you're interested in this area of the law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Attorney Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington State for more than 20 years, and I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So I'm just going to jump right into the topic. What are the best practices if you're going to have to do a Zoom court? What things have I seen that I know that I don't want you to do, and what are some things that we actually do have our clients do? So I haven't prepared this as always. I'm just jumping into it off the cuff, and I think, so these are no particular order. The first best practice would be making sure that your name appears correctly on the Zoom. So many times people get embarrassed or the court can get upset because, let's say, you don't use the iPad very much, or you don't use the computer very much, or you're borrowing it, you certainly don't use it for court. Let's say your name is Tim Smith. I don't know a Tim Smith. That's a random name out there. Disclaimer. And it says a little name, right? When you log into the Zoom, it says who you are, written a name in each little box, and it might say, Little Mama's Big House, or some strange thing like that, or it could be, could be worse. It could say F the police. Let's hope it doesn't say that. Don't make your Zoom say that. But I want you to find out in the program where it is that you go and put your name on there, right? It can even be, and you generally, nowadays, they don't let you change your name for the most part once you log in because they don't want people messing with the court. And so you need to figure that out prior to logging in where your name is going to show up and put it as your name, right? If your name is Tim Smith, Mr. Tim Smith, right? For me, mine says Attorney, Lance Fryrear. That's what mine says. It didn't always say that. I've made a few mistakes over the Zoom periods of time, but now it says the right thing. And so that's going to help so the court can identify you and you can make sure your case gets heard and you won't be embarrassed by something that the court finds disrespectful or unusual. We just don't need to start out a court hearing like that. So that's number one. Number two is please use mute. Make sure when you log in that you are muted. Make sure when you log in, if your camera shows up, turn it off. We don't want to hear what you have to say. The court doesn't. We don't want to see you, when we don't need to see you. And there are some nightmare stories out there, even some in my own cases, where someone doesn't mute and now they start cursing out the other side or, cursing out the judge, these type of things. We need to protect ourselves. So learn how mute works whenever's going on and use the mute function. There's a corollary to that. Generally speaking, the courts want us to keep ourselves muted and our camera off until they call the case. Once they call the case, typically they want us to turn our camera on and unmute. And so pay attention to what each court wants. I'm in Washington State, this is what I see, but each court is different. You could be watching this from anywhere around the world. And so, look at the customs, what's going on, but a good default is camera off, muted until they call our case, and listen up. Listen to what's going on so you don't miss your case getting called. Let's move on to number three. The third best practice is please avoid putting a bunch of stuff in the chat. Okay, the chat is also a possible disaster. If you've ever used the chat feature on Zoom, sometimes you can only chat to everybody. Sometimes you can chat to a single person. We don't want you trying to type your attorney something in chat. Oh, I'm really mad at this such and such prosecutor. And now it goes to everybody, right? So don't use the chat unless you're specifically told to use the chat. And if you are using the chat, how we might use it is we might find the court clerk, because maybe we know who the court clerk is, and says, hey, I'm here. Here's what I expect to happen. Maybe we might use it like that. But please, that chat is public. It's easy to make a mistake. Just lay off the chat if you can. That would be a best practice that I would recommend. Best practice number 4. Now, this is about where you're located. Okay, it's just so many nightmares. couple different things. One, be somewhere stationary. Please don't be walking around. The court gets so mad. It's so disrespectful to the court. I'm walking around with my phone and we're seeing your entire place, and there's your your ceiling fan. Stay away from ceiling fans. There's your dirty clothes over there, and there's the dishes, and we're getting seasick watching you, right? And now we don't like you as far as the court does or whatnot, and you don't want the court not liking you if they're going to decide your fate. You could type some things into YouTube. You could see the famous case that's out there where the guy was being prosecuted for driving while suspended, and he's driving, right? And the court's like, "Are you driving, sir?" Next thing you know, he's in trouble, right? So be somewhere stationary. Also be somewhere that's reasonably quiet, right? We don't want to be doing something on a bus, not stationary. We don't want screaming kids in the background, those type of things. And then finally, be dressed appropriately. You are in court. Right? No hats, no eating and drinking, at least while your camera's on. Eat and drink all you want when your camera's off, right? When the camera's on, it's just like, be presentable, right? Be presentable. It's as if you're in court. And why we care about this is there's people that might be deciding your fate. And if we keep them happy, we're more likely to have an outcome that we like. So stationary, quiet, presentable, and again, no ceiling fans, right? It's like, it's bad. So let's move on to number 5. I think the fifth piece of advice that I want to give is to really know that Zoom link or that Teams link ahead of time. Make sure you know what it is, because there's so much anxiety if you don't have the right one. How do you find it out? You can talk to your attorney. You can talk to your public defender, who's also an attorney. You can, if you're self-represented, you can call the court. And then also be on guard. Okay, it just happened to me today. Okay, I log into a hearing. The hearing was supposed to start at 9, so I'm sitting in my office, and I log into the Zoom, but it says waiting for host to start meeting. It's 9:05, waiting for host to start meeting. It's 9:10, waiting for host to start meeting. I'm getting a little nervous now. Do I have the right Zoom link? Am I not in the right place? Why haven't they started the meeting? And the really annoying thing is sometimes the court is just late, right? They don't care. You could be in court in person. Sometimes they make you do Zoom, but don't let it get like past 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes without checking, right? In that case, I was just within a minute or two of getting a hold of my staff and saying, "Can you double check this?" And then boom, it popped on. So the court was 10 to 15 minutes late getting started. But the trouble is, if you don't have the right link and don't show up, on a criminal case, you're going to get a warrant for your arrest. On a civil case, you're going to get defaulted and lose. And if you're in the wrong place and you wait too long to find out that it's the wrong place because it still says host hasn't started meeting or something like that, then you could still get defaulted or get a warrant. So don't panic. They're often late, but don't just rest and not take responsibility and action if it's been longer than you feel comfortable with. If you got an attorney, reach out to them. If not, I'd be getting a hold of the court. "Hey, can I double check? I'm in the waiting room. They haven't let me in. Tell me what I need to do." Okay? So the nice thing about doing things by Zoom is we can't be at home, right? We can have our nice top and our underwear underneath. They're not going to see us. The bad thing is that mistakes can happen, because mistakes happen all the time. The horror stories I could tell you about King County Superior Court, the stuff we've been through there. Because when there's a lot of hearings, there can be a lot of mistakes. So please be careful. That's my other best practice. We want to make sure if we use this luxury item of not having to go to court, that we use it carefully and wisely and not hurt our case. And my best advice is, if you have a chance to go personally to court and your attorney isn't against it, and sometimes it's a good idea to go in person. And, I go to more in person than I used to, but still, if it's just a continuance or something, it makes sense to save a couple hours by doing something by Zoom. So I hope you found that useful. It's great, but just obey those ways of doing things, and you're going to have a much better time. If you have a legal problem in Washington State, feel free to reach out to my firm. We've been doing this more than 20 years. If we get on board, we'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.